Thank you. Good morning, Chairperson, Minister, Deputy Minister, honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, DG, and Commissioner BMA. I'm going to present on the Miss South Africa contestant Adetshina Chidimma. I'll give the background of the matter. On the 5th of August 2024, the organizers of the Miss South Africa pageant sent DHA a request to verify the citizenship of the contestant, Miss Chidimma Adetshina. Upon receiving the request, the department endeavored to retrieve the records of the contestant and her mother. A team of investigators from counter-corruption and civic services officials was established to investigate the registration of the birth for both the mother and her daughter. A preliminary investigation found that there was a prima facie indications of fraud committed by Chidimma Adetshina's mother. On the strength of these indications, the department broadened the investigation scope as reasons existed to believe that fraud and identity theft may have been committed by the person recorded in Home Affairs records as Chidimma Adetshina's mother. In this case, an innocent South African mother whose identity may have been stolen as part of the alleged fraud committed by Adetshina's mother suffered as a result because she could not register her child. We are saying that Adetshina could not have participated in the alleged unlawful actions of her mother, as she was an infant at the time when the activities took place in 2001. The department has identified officials who registered the birth at the Home Affairs Office in Johannesburg. One of the officials has since passed on. The department is investigating 2 other officials who may have been involved in the alleged fraudulent scheme. And we have relied on records to establish that the South African mother whose identity may have been stolen was registered by her mother in 1982, and as a result she entered the National Population Register. Her birth was registered in Tshwane, and in 1995 she applied for an ID. 3 months after she applied for the ID, she returned to Home Affairs to collect the ID. And on her return, she learned that her ID was issued in Johannesburg at an office where she had not applied for. She then gave birth in 2001. When she went to register her child at Home Affairs, that's when she discovered that there was a child registered under her ID number. And that child was 3 months at the time. So then there was no way that there would be, now she registered the first child and now she come to register another one within the time frame. The child that was registered was Miss Chidimma Vanessa Onwe Adetshina. She then spent months before she could be given a new identity number. She was eventually given a new identity number. Home Affairs has visited the address listed for Miss Adetshina's mother and that of the lady whose ID was stolen. The information shared by the family of the lady whose ID was stolen in Tshwane matches the details contained in DHA records. Miss Adetshina's mother was issued with a promotion of Administrative Justice Act letter on the 7th August 2024. Her response to this letter will determine the final decision that the department will take in relation to the ID she is currently carrying. The ongoing investigation of the department is also looking at other areas that are important to the fair and accurate conclusion of this case. The department's investigation is at an advanced stage. This investigation now includes the involvement of the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, the HOCS, and DPCI. The department's drive towards digitization will eliminate instances of fraudulent interference. This case highlights the need for caution as the department implements the court order on blocked IDs. And the department at this stage is obtaining legal advice on the implications of the alleged fraudulent activity on Ms. Adetshina's citizenship status. Thank you, Chairperson. On some matters, I would really ask to just give just a bit, because some of these matters, as we have said, the investigation is ongoing, and some of these matters might really be before courts, so I cannot give much of the information that we have. On one of the questions on the legal status of Ms. Chidimma, we have asked for legal opinion on this, and I'm sure Advocate Khumalo can just give a response at a high level in terms of where we are. And on the evidence that Home Affairs has got to suggest that fraud and identity theft was committed, this is one of the matters that will be before court. And what I can say is that at this stage, we do have the evidence that we received from the hospitals, from DHA archives, from the municipalities, that points us to the real person whose identity was stolen. So, and on, yes, we have indeed managed to trace the real mother of the former Miss SA contestant, and however, we always had his contact details when they asked us to investigate. At some stage, the contact detail that we were talking to her on, it just went missing, and went unanswered. And we went to the address that we were given, and when we arrived, the last known address, they referred us to the lawyers, that we should speak to them through the lawyers, which is what is currently happening. And on the criminal cases, yes, we have said there that we are now working with DPCI on the matters, meaning that the police are involved, and we will take the matter further. On the question by Honorable Mudisa, are the officials still active? At this stage, the officials are still in the department. However, we are the investigation really, as I say, it's at an advanced stage, and we really want to make sure that when we pounce, we would have done quite a bit of groundwork. And how long does it take to investigate? It normally takes 90 working days. However, there are cases that we really endeavor to speed up, especially given the status of this case. So I think in the next coming weeks, we will really be done with investigating this case. And Honorable Member, on the questions in slide 3, on this slide, we are talking about the real holder of the South African, owner of the South African ID. Unfortunately, we could not give the names, but we are talking to the real holder of the South African ID, who indeed 3 months when she returned to the Home Affairs to collect, she was informed that there was already someone who has applied for that identity document. So this is the real owner. And for this one, we are sure that she is the real owner, because when we checked the archives of the department, we found everything. When they applied, the mother used the documents that they used to apply. They were there in the archives of the department. On the other person, there were no documents in DHA repository. So the documents that we got is what we got from the hospitals, from the municipalities, and other places where we went to search for documents to trace the other mother. And I think on why did we investigate now, I think the DG Sigama can respond to that, because this was a matter of duplicate where two people were sharing an identity document. Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Khumalo. Do you want to, or you want on another time? Okay. I'm saying you are fair that you respond to a matter. Okay, you can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Like DG has indicated on the issue of the legal status of Chidimma we have requested an external legal opinion, but at high level, her status followed that of the mother, and she was registered as a South African. Now that the mother's status is in question, in the event that the DG finally cancels that identity document, it will mean that the registration itself was fraudulent, and therefore that status cannot stand in law. She would qualify to apply under Section 4.3 of the Act, assuming that indeed she was born in the country and her birth was registered in terms of the Birth and Death Registration Act. And whilst I'm saying that, the problem that she would then face is that the legislature would not have anticipated a fraudulent registration of birth, so that she would not be able to benefit from that. And also it will depend on her movements in and out of the country, because it's a requirement that you should not be outside the country for more than 90 days at a time. So that will also then affect her. In terms of also the father, the department is still investigating, because from the document it is clear that the father also was involved in this registration of birth. So what we will need to check eventually, Chair, is when everything is cancelled, does it render her stateless? Does she have, for instance, Nigerian citizenship? Does she have Mozambican citizenship? I think we will have to navigate at that point in time whether then the cancellation of her own status may render her stateless. But that will actually happen when everything is done and the investigation is completed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. If it is a response.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I think there was a question regarding the release. Why were criminal charges not preferred and deportation undertaken in relation to the Libyans? Deportations, just to indicate, deportation is a penalty. Once a person is deported, they are prohibited from the country unless they can appeal to the DG after a 4-year rehabilitation program. So it is a penalty. They're also V-listed. They're on stop lists. So that in this case, that appeared to be the best option. A criminal case requires it requires intent. It requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Things which can take time. It also has the bail options as well. So the deportation was the most effective penalty in terms of the discussions on how we deal with this matter. Then in terms of the juveniles, the issue with regard to the juveniles, if during a court process...
Thank you very much. I'll invite Deputy Minister.
No, thank you very much, Chair. I think that most of the issues has been canvassed and responded to by the team. But just a few comments and also to bring clarity on some of the issues. I think we all agree in this room that digital transformation is a way to go, and it will deal with a lot of our problems. If you look in terms of the Libyan citizens and how the visas were issued, a digital system will have limited human interface with direct applicants, and it will have taken all of that into the digital space, and we will not have had the problems we have had. And I think that it was very clear from the DG that it's not an issue of training. The DECO officials, when they leave their trade, they understand what they are supposed to be doing. But because the system is manual, it allows for human touch, which is flawed. That is why you see this. Whether intentional or unintentional, that is subject for investigation. But I think glaringly you will see slots being left out and everything. The system will have not allowed those applications to even be considered, because there will be stop and internal control systems within the system itself. Now, I think one of the important projects that will deal with the issue is the implementation of the AP system, which now currently it is testing in some of the aspects, particularly, for instance, the infants. The system says that for an infant to be registered, you must register a footprint of that particular instant, which means anybody else who comes later to try and register the infant in terms of the system, that person will not have been able to do so. So it will have avoided a lot of things that we faced when it comes to the Miss South Africa debacle. And I think Mrs. Gama has responded on the issue of the digitization of records. Look, if we want to do a digital transformation, which we are all supporting, you must commit resources to it. That's the key issue. Because even with the digitization of records that we are dealing with, we are experiencing financial constraints with it. And I'm happy, Chair, that you have indicated that as a committee you will be doing oversight, which will also involve Treasury. I think that will help us unlock some of the problems and then continue with the digitization program. One of the things that we could do, you must remember this incident of Miss South Africa is something that happened in 2001. We did not have a smart ID then. It was a time when you could literally take a green barcoded ID, take out the face of another person, insert a face of another person, and you assume the identity of that person. Now, some of the projects that we are doing internally is the phasing off of this green barcoded ID. And digitization becomes key to it because it means we have to modernize all our offices. Once all your offices are modernized, you can then say, I'm no longer going to be issuing out green barcoded IDs, which will then deal with the issue. Now, one of the issues that I thought Mrs. Gama was going to talk to is that corrective action was taken in the issue of the mother. Remember, if we were saying about a legitimate mother who came and said, I can't register my child, and then both of them were told to surrender the duplicates, and then the original mother, which is the correct mother, submitted, and as such issued with a new ID number, then could continue with his life. It's the imposter who ran away with the documentation, but corrective action was taken there. Now, the last part is that when we do investigations, and I really plead with the committee that they really take note of this and keep it in heart and mind, that we are doing investigations with an intention of arresting people, prosecuting them, making sure ultimately that they get a sentence. Now, when we are dealing with criminals, they use lawfare as well to get out of the situation, especially on issues of process. And that is why it's very important for us to make sure that the process on dealing with those people is very clean, so that at the end of the day, they can be able to face the music. Otherwise, you can end up sitting with an illegal person in the country just on the basis that you did not follow the proper legal process on arresting that particular person. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, DM. Minister?
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson and Honourable Members. I think I would start by just emphasising what the DM ended with there, that we have to ensure that if we want to restore the rule of law, that we ourselves uphold the law when we embark on these processes. Because the worst possible outcome is indeed that we go through a process and it gets chucked out in court, and then there's no resolution possible whatsoever. So I think it's in that spirit that we also made the undertaking that we will come to this committee, and I appreciate what the Chair and Honourable Thring has said, because this is the forum for us to do the report back on the information that we can, in a way that does not undermine the legal cases that we operate with. So I think the committee's appreciation of that is noted, and we will certainly endeavour to always act in that way. And Chair, if I may, through you, also say to the media colleagues to please take note of that comment, because we will have this as the primary forum to make sure we uphold the law in the way that we work. I want to say one thing, Chair, about what we've discussed around digitization, and I think the support and the understanding that we all see clearly the deficiencies here is well appreciated. But what is lacking at the moment, it's not that there's no digitization, and I think your comments about the Lubisi report are very well made, Chair. But what's lacking at the moment is really the engine, the workflow and adjudication engine. So the work that's happening with the digitization of records, other elements that have come in over the years, they have their space. But how do you integrate them into one system? And most critically, how do you approve adjudication and decision making through technology? Because the truth is, Chair, a computer does not grant a visa application for which you didn't apply. A computer does not allow you to get a visa with an incomplete application. It doesn't even allow you to click submit. And these are some of this, as you could see from the presentation, the level of basic problems that we are dealing with and loopholes we could close is really at that level. And that is what I think is really missing, is for us to pull together all these resources that have been constructed over the years, but then to make sure that our decision-making processes are insulated against the kind of discretion and human interference that the DM talks about. And I want to emphasize, Chair, that this is something that benefits the people of South Africa on every level. Because, yes, we're dealing with visas here, but the same principle applies when you want an ID or a passport or a birth certificate. There's an input, then there's an engine, and at this stage, in many ways, human engines to make a decision, and then there's the output that you get. So it relates to all aspects of Home Affairs work, and including the BMA and what the Commissioner talks about. So I believe that if we can get the support, and the support is financial, and I think that's why the engagement with Treasury is going to be so vital, to get that central engine that pulls these parts together and then runs with the decision-making processes. And that frees up our personnel, Chair. I must say again, I mean, we've got 40% of what we need. So the essential question facing Home Affairs is, where's the other 60% going to come from? That's the question. If there's any member on this committee who can convince me that 60% will come from Treasury in the form of humans, then I would like whatever you're smoking. It's going to have to come from somewhere else. I think we all agree, actually, that it has to come through working efficiently with technology, because that's the only way we're going to free up our personnel to actually be able to do their jobs and not be firefighters 24/7. I want to just briefly also respond. I think it was Honourable Kurjani who makes a very salient point on this.